Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I am your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm delighted to welcome a very, very accomplished professional from the UK, but speaking to us today from Johannesburg, South Africa, Mariette Richardson. Mariette, welcome to the show.
It's an absolute honor to be here. Thank you, Ashutosh.
Thank you so much. Mariette is the founder and director of My Voice UK Ltd. She is a member of the Institute of Directors, ambassador and digital creative industries. She's an author. And all of you know, I'm very partial to authors. She's an author of a book titled Free the Hidden Speaking Inside. Have I got the title right?
Let me just show you again.
Speaker
Free
Inside.
the Hidden Speaker Inside.
Thank you. I'm sorry I didn't get the title right. Free the Hidden Speaker Inside.
Fine.
So, Mariette, before we start talking about communication, tell me a little bit about your own journey in brief.
May I call you Ash? That's going to be easier for me.
Yes, please. Yes.
Ash, luck for me is when you win the lotto. But a lucky break is when you put yourself out there to make it happen. And when you grab an opportunity when it arises. Now, in my case, my lucky break came in 2017 when I've immigrated to the UK. And I wanted to start earning British pound. We came with South African rand, which is 21 to the pound. And of course, we needed to make money. And I attended a workshop. The lady spoke about personal styling, color consultation, which is your best colors. And afterwards, I spoke to her at the coffee station. And she said, Mariette, I'm frantic. Next week, I'm going to present to 30 women in London, and I haven't done this before, and I'm very nervous about it. And I said, I can help you. I can rehearse with you. Coming from a background of being a speech and drama teacher, I studied speech and drama since the age of 5. My dad was always a Toastmaster, and he encouraged us to make speeches. So I said, absolutely not a problem. Here we go. And that was my first client. Yes.
Amazing. And that is when you started My Voice UK Limited, is it?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
And tell me a little bit more about My Voice UK Limited.
Certainly. It is a voice coaching company. And I'm also a public speaker. And especially after I've written the book, and I was very fortunate because my publisher entered it for the Business Book Awards in 2021, and it became a finalist. And I realized that the best way to market the book is to do public speaking, talk about my business, my career, my book, and be able to promote the book. Now, My Voice UK focuses on the corporate world. And I especially have a heart for the female in the boardroom.
Right.
As you know, a woman's voice is physically different from a man's. And it's because our vocal folds are shorter and thinner, and they vibrate at a higher frequency than that of a man. So we do not have those booming voices. And I have to teach a woman how to incorporate some other tricks of the trade to make herself heard.
How wonderful. And congratulations on being a finalist in 2021. But let me ask you the next question. You say that we can apply our voice as our most powerful business tool. Help me understand this and give me an example.
Certainly. People don't realize that it is their most powerful business tool. So the first step is to make a client aware of the sound of his own voice. I teach them to listen to their own voices, to record them, maybe record a voice note, listen to it, become aware of the way that you speak. Now, I want to, at that point, just mention, Ash, when I get a client, I'm never going to change their accent, their style of communication. All that adds to their uniqueness. I want to retain that. It's almost like putting makeup on a face. They do have a beautiful face. I'm not going to change the shape of their noses, but we are going to accentuate their lips and make it better. That's my job, is to take your way of communication and see how we can improve it. And I've been a radio announcer and a television presenter. I've learned how to speak on camera, how to use a microphone, which comes in very handy at the moment with all our virtual communication. And I can give a client some tips, you know, how to use your speaking area, for example.
Very interesting. When you say style of communication, how would you define style of communication?
It's what you've learned from that age, from when you grew up.
Okay.
You learn by example from your parents, your friends, peers, colleagues, teachers, coaches, whoever come across your way, and you imitate them. I don't know if you've noticed, but maybe your children sound a lot like you.
You're right.
Yes, I'm beginning to notice that I sound a lot more like my mother. And I even use expressions that she used. Yes, which is not a bad thing. But so I don't want to change that. That is your culture, that's your personality, that's your style. And I say use that. That is what makes you unique.
Very interesting.
So, yes, you must retain that. Have I made myself clear?
And based on, yeah, absolutely clear. And based on all the people you have worked with, what would you say are some of the challenges a lot of people face when it comes to communication and public speaking?
Often people say to me, Mariette, I feel as if I'm not being heard. Now, what I do to help them sometimes they don't know how to interrupt or to have their say in a conversation, especially in a meeting. So my tip is, I would say, Ash, what you've just said, I find most interesting. I'd like to add. So I use your name. I make a small pause after saying your name. Ash, I agree. So I get your attention and everybody else's attention, and I make my point. Ash, I don't know if you're aware of how much emphasis is placed on nonverbal communication. Albert Morabian wrote a book, Silent Messages, and he did research, and he said that as much as 93% of your communication is nonverbal. Now, that is, some people believe it's too high, but his point is that we need to take into account nonverbal communication. Even here where we are, my framing, my background, the way I show up, my clothing, when you meet a person, your look, the way you smell, your fragrance, everything about you says something before you even uttered a single word.
Wow.
And that is, that's part of my training, a big part of my training, is to help a person to get the look, I call it. The way you stand, the way you gesture, never gesture with little frivolly gestures like that says absolutely nothing. A gesture must be strong, open-handed. I'm going to talk about 2 points. That type of thing, and it enhances what you speak, what you say.
Well said.
I can carry on. Don't let me
No,
get
no, no.
carried
It's very, very
away.
interesting. Very interesting. The other question a lot of people ask me, and I'm going to ask you the same question. How does one overcome stage fright?
Yes, good question. Did you know that 75% of all humans suffer from glossophobia?
Yep.
Glosso, the Greek word for tongue, and phobia. So we are naturally, most of us, afraid to stand up and speak. And I put it down to the fear of judgment. Because you are exposed when you, especially when you walk forward in class, when you meet new people, they look at you from head to toe, and you feel naked, you feel exposed, and you fear that they might judge you. But I can assure all our viewers that actually people are wrapped up, and they don't really judge you that much. That fear is in your head. But, and here is my good advice, it does become better by through practice. It's like learning to ride a bicycle. You can, I'm sure you can attest to that.
Absolutely right. It's a great point. But for my viewers and listeners, what would you say are 3 interesting pointers for better public speaking?
Good. The first one is, I've only got 3 steps.
Okay.
Get the look. And by that, I mean you have to show up. You have to take some trouble. You have to brush your teeth.
Okay.
No food particles in your teeth. And if you have food particles in your mouth, your tongue is going to want to try and dislodge it. So brush your teeth. Or if you can't, at least rinse your mouth. You've got to have the right stance. And for me, it is, I begin with create space between your ears and your shoulders. The minute you do that, you will open your shoulders, which is a very good gesture in body language because you are inviting. It's not this type of thing. Never, ever fold your arms. Close your shoulders. Open up. Lift your chin, not too high, so that these muscles are stretched, just parallel to the floor, and don't stick it out. Just keep it nicely balanced on your shoulders and make eye contact. And for our current generation, they call them the face down generation, don't they?
Yes, absolutely.
It is, yes, it is a problem because I have to train them to make eye contact. They tend to hide behind that little screen. And some of them find it very difficult to make eye contact. If it's appropriate, smile, be open, be receptive. And that is how you are going to say, I'm here. I've got something to say. Listen to me.
How interesting. How interesting. The next question to you is that, I remember when I was starting off my life as a young corporate manager, we had all the time in the world. We had the ability to write long prose, to be able to communicate. But Mariette, the communication landscape has changed dramatically. Everyone wants you to express everything in a few seconds or a few words. How do people adjust to these new expectations from a new generation of people?
Yes, it is a challenge because I still have many clients who suffer from, if I may say the word, verbal diarrhea. So I have to hone them in, and I teach them to declutter their speech, which is also a very helpful technique if you are going to prepare a post for TikTok or even a short post or a little video clip. Now, I think of a pyramid and I describe it in my book, but if we could just think of a pyramid and we are going to divide it into 4 levels. The bottom level, the foundation of the pyramid, is your opening. But don't worry about that now when you prepare your speech. That can come later.
Yeah.
And the tip of the pyramid is your closing.
Correct.
That is what you're going to leave your audience with. But if I should ask you, Ash, what is your speech about? If you could just condense it and give me that crux of the matter, what do you want to say to the audience? That is that little bit of important information that you need to take and build around that. And then I teach them to give us a little intro to that crux, explain to us why are you saying that, and then we're going to wrap up, and then we think of a good opening and a remarkable and memorable closing.
Amazing. What amazing tips. Thank you. One more question relating to communication, and then I'll come to your book. I wanted to get your perspective on how does culture impact communication? By way of example, I know that, and I'm from India, when I talk to a lot of Indians, young or old, the first thing is, let my work speak for itself. Why should I say anything about it? And on the other side, as you would say from your adopted country, when you go to the other side of the pond, they're constantly talking only about everything that they have done.
Yes.
I wanted to ask you, how does culture impact communication?
It is so true what you say. I deal with Frenchmen and people in Europe and Americans, and we have a natural different style of communication.
Yes.
But what I would say, there are even courses that you can take to understand another culture, which is really important. Like the Japanese, Japanese who won't. You don't give them your business card. You wait for them to first hand you a business card. Those are very important things. But culture never negate that beautiful cultural heritage that you have. But in terms of diversity and inclusion, and because we are a global village, we need to be open and accepting of other people's ways and mannerisms and beliefs, and we have to have empathy for it. So I would say respect comes first and foremost. You know, Ash, another very interesting author is Amy Cuddy, Cuddy. And her book is called, or the one that I'm referring to is called Presence. And she says, the minute you meet somebody, the first 2 questions that come up subconsciously in your mind is, can I trust this person?
Correct.
Can I respect this person? And those 2 go hand in hand.
Well said. Well said.
Yes.
So, Mariette, now let's talk about your book. And I'm going to get the title right this time. Free the Hidden Speaker Inside You. You know, and for my viewers and listeners, tell me, is this book available on Amazon?
Absolutely.
Okay. So,
and the audio version is available on Audible.
Okay. So I'm going to ask all our viewers and listeners to go and check out Mariette Richardson's book, Free the Hidden Speaker Inside You. I'm going to check it out myself. Now tell me about your book and what was your hypothesis when you wrote it?
Oh, it's quite an interesting story, and this is the truth.
And then please show us the book also when you talk about it.
I'm proud to show it.
Wonderful. Thank you.
I must say, the subtitle, and this was my publisher, she added, how your voice can make you money and give you the life you desire.
Wow. Very powerful.
Over the top, but on the other hand, it is so true, because in the testimonials and reviews, I see how much people have grown. But I started off before lockdown, before COVID, 2019, writing down coaching notes and just preparing for a book. And then I met a lady. It was one of those lucky breaks again. I sat next to a lady and she said, "And what do you do?" I told her what I'm doing. And she said, "I'm a publisher." And she said, "I'd like to see your manuscript." And then in the beginning of COVID, it was 2020, wasn't it?
March 2020, yeah.
Yes. She sent me an email, "Mariette, how far is your manuscript?" Ash, I looked at it and I thought, boring, boring, boring. It was a textbook. I thought, no, I don't want to do that. So I wrote back to her and said, I'm going to start all over again. And we decided it's a tiny book, as you can see.
Yeah,
it's
I can.
small,
Yeah.
and it's quite thin. It's a pocket book. The idea is to carry it with you and to use as a reference.
Okay.
How do I rehearse? And then you quickly go and read about that. What do I do with my hands? And so we carry on. Tips and tricks of the trade. And then I rewrote it, and I imagined a client in front of me. And I just coached him.
Wow.
And so there are only 3 steps. First one is get the look.
Yeah.
And that's about the way you dress, the way you show up, and of course, what you eat, healthy diet, your teeth, and everything about that, the way you look and act, stand. And then the second section is don't talk, entertain. Anybody can talk, but a memorable speaker addresses people's emotions. You either scare them with statistics that are horrific, you either shock them, you make them laugh, you make them cry, and that is what they will remember. So we need to bring in a little, you don't need to be a comedian or an actor, but you have to touch them in some way or another. And my last one is don't walk, stride.
Oh, wonderful.
Stride is walking with a purpose.
Correct. Stride like a colossus. Okay.
As if you've got all the confidence in the world.
Yeah. Wonderful. And on that note, Mariette, and your 3 amazing chapters or lessons, get the look. And I love the way you explain in so much detail, including brush your teeth. Second one is don't talk, entertain. I think, again, very, very powerful. And the third one, which is so amazing, is don't walk, stride. I think these are incredible lessons. I'm definitely going to, place an order for a copy of your book and try and understand what you are saying. But thank you so much for speaking to me about your own journey. Thank you for speaking to me about my voice. Thank you for talking to me about the incredible amounts of detail that go into effective communication. And thank you also for, and I learned a few new things from you today on how one can communicate better, and also about stage fright and how we can overcome it. Thank you for speaking to me, and good luck to you.
I enjoyed speaking to you. Thank you, Ash. Goodbye.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.